Yo, so two super common issues I see with the companies that I speak to. Number one, sending emails to absolutely everyone, regardless of whether or not they're a good fit. And number two, sending the same email to everyone, and that's across a bunch of different personas. Now, naturally, if you're doing that, your results are not going to be what they could be. So this is how to score leads in Clay, and why bother? Well, firstly, you're going to get more qualified prospects with fewer emails. So because you're doing this tighter qualification and segmentation work up front, the natural downstream effect of that is better reply rates and better conversion rates. Secondly, you're going to preserve your domain health. So as a result of number one, you avoid sending to poor fit leads that are going to either not reply to your emails or mark you as spam, and you send to more people who are more likely to respond to you and ask for information, etc. And then lastly, if you're manually doing some of this qualification work right now, so that is, going to the company's website or LinkedIn page, or going to the person's LinkedIn page to look for certain things that make them a fit, you can save probably 90% of the time by just handing it over to one of these workflows. So there are two main use cases here. Number one is to qualify for fit. So that's essentially binary, that's yes or no. And then number two is to segment into different campaigns. So you might have different account tiers, for example. You might have tier one accounts who you want a multi-channel. You want to send them to the growth machine or Lemlist, and you want to send them LinkedIn messages, emails, etc. And then you have a tier two list who you just want to email, and maybe tier three list you don't want to reach out to at all. But then also, if you want to have different messaging, so you might have a list of chief data officers and chief tech officers, or something similar within the same list, and maybe you want to reach out to them with different messaging, or maybe, for example, you want to reach out to two different sets of prospects with slightly different case studies. The two main methods, AI-based scoring. So this is going to be best for complex qualification where you have multiple data points, or where you need AI to make a judgment call, right? If you have all of the information there and it's pretty straightforward to just sort between the different criteria, then you can use Clay Scorer feature, which is absolutely free. So let's hop into things. So what you'll see here is two columns, essentially job relevance score and then company relatedness. And this is typically what we do whenever we pull any list, particularly from Apollo, because the data you get from Apollo, whilst good, is not always going to be in keeping with what you want to use in your campaign. And so essentially what you'll see here is we're evaluating the relevance of the job title to our offer. So we give it our offer, which is not actually our offer, just a short breakdown of what the company does. And then look for a score between 0 and 100. So breaking that down into highly relevant, very relevant, moderately relevant, etc., and asking AI to make a judgment call, and then only output the score between 0 and 100. Now, the second one, which is going to be company relatedness. Now, this depends really on how you build your lists, right? If you have mapped your town up front, or you've built an account list to begin with, then you're not going to need to do this in a second table. But if you've pulled a list of people and you want to score those companies to determine whether or not they should be in this specific campaign, then again, this is super handy. And it's going to do a pretty similar thing, right? We need a level of certainty from 0 to 100, and then we just give it all of the additional context that would make a company a good fit. And again, if the information is insufficient or inconclusive, output 0. So then you can then decide, what is kind of the benchmark at which you decide to put that person onto the next stage or put that person into the campaign. Generally, we use 70, but you might want to choose 80 or 85, whatever it is, depending on your needs. Now, sometimes you want to get a little bit more granular with this. So here's an example of that, right? And so essentially, in this example, we did a similar thing, but what we actually did was combine the job title and the company research into the same column, and then ask AI to make a judgment call based on that. Now, the reason we did that was because here we're reaching out to people in PR or comms departments. And we know that people with communications in their jobs title doesn't necessarily mean that they're handling external communications. I mean, they might be, but they also might have a primary focus on internal communications. And so essentially what we're trying to do here is use the AI to make a judgment call as to whether or not that person is primarily going to be focused on internal or external communications, and as a result, going to be a good fit to reach out to. So that's what you see here. Companies primarily focus on internal communications, e.g. universities, etc., or with limited public exposure, should score closer to 0. Now, to talk about score row in Clay, essentially, like I said, if you have all of the criteria already in the table and all you need is to sort through it, then score row in Clay is absolutely ideal for that. So here, just for illustrative purposes, I've created a column And the values we're going to score are people count. So this is essentially, if I show you here, what we did was search for the number of people in the creative department at each company. And then that's going to give us a number. We've put that into another column so that we can add a 0 in and use that to score the row if they don't have anyone in that department. And so what you're seeing here is you enter the criteria and then you enter the comparison criteria, right? And what I've said here is if there's 0 to 1 person on the team, we want to score at 20 because we know that they're probably going to be a better fit than if they already have a huge creative team. If there are 2 to 5 people on the team, score it a 5. And if it's more than 5, then we haven't given it a score at all. Again, similar. So what we're doing here is looking at the company research and saying if it mentions these keywords, so health or fitness, then we want to give it a score of 20. And then lastly, employee count. So we've gone for 11 to 50 and 50 to 200, right? If they are a company between the sizes of 11 and 50 employees, we want to score it a 5. If they're 50 to 200, so this should actually be 51 to 200 to avoid the overlap, then score it a 20, right? But this is, again, like I said, just for illustrative purposes and to show you how it essentially will work out. So it's going to give you that score, right? So 0 is between 0 and 1. So 0 people in the creative department, so it scores 20 points. And then it's going to look at this research here, and it says contains keyword health. Perfect. So we have 20 points for that. And then company size 14 is between 11 and 50. So it scores 5 points as opposed to scoring 20 if they were between 50 and 200. So that's, again, a super easy way that you can use this feature to score people, and then you can from there either segment them into different campaigns or choose to not segment them into campaigns and just not to reach out to those people whatsoever. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. And that is how to score rows in Clay. Thanks.